Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Serve Canada's Mental Health and Youth series, Elevate Yourself, supported by TD Bank. First of all, I want to wish all of you a very, very happy and joyous new year, and we hope and pray that we are COVID free in the coming year. My name is Anu Srivastava, and I am the Executive Director of We Serve Canada, and I'll be your host today. This is the second workshop that we are hosting of the diet and nutrition segment, which is focused on emotional resilience and mental fitness. I would like to thank each and every one of you who attended our last workshop, which was called Food and Mood. It was a huge success because of all the support and love that you showed our workshop. So now let's begin with this exciting workshop, which is called Emotional Resilience and Mental Fitness. And at first, I would like to introduce our very, very special speakers. My first speaker is Priyanka Yogini. She's a holistic nutritional practitioner as well as certified yoga teacher. And I have my second speaker is Mohammed Sheikh. He's an NLP trainer and a certified heart math trainer. So welcome both of you. And I'd like to actually start first with Mohammed to kind of explain your credentials because I really am interested to know what does this NLP trainer and certified heart math trainer mean?
Sure, absolutely. Let me give you the short version of my story. Basically, I was, about 20 years ago, I was a straight A student with a high school average in the 90s. And I was on a track to go into, software engineering, and I had my pick of any university I wanted. I chose U of T. And in first year university, the most weirdest thing happened, strange to me being a straight A student. I suddenly got so much fear and anxiety around writing tests and exams that I physically actually became ill. In fact, the first time that happened, I thought that maybe it was something that I ate and I had the stomach flu or something, but a pattern occurred really quickly and was always around, tests and exams. And I couldn't shake it, right? It just got worse and worse and worse. And eventually I ended up dropping out of school completely because you got to pass your exams and tests to pass, right?
Right.
So that put me on a path of, kind of going downwards. My self-esteem was shot. My confidence was shot. What I thought about myself, my entire life plan was completely altered. Not to mention that I used to have a stutter in high school, not to mention that I had a lot of anxiety in meeting new people. But my saving grace was that, in my community, I was very fortunate to kind of been referred to personal development. And that's what I recognized because, although the formal education was no longer a route for me, I have very much, believed in knowledge, and I very much believed in education. And that sort of very quickly put me on the path of discovering what NLP is. And NLP, I mean, most people who have heard of NLP might have heard of Tony Robbins, right? And Tony Robbins is known as America's #1, coach, but he's more in the peak performance. Everything he does is actually from NLP. But what NLP really is, it's a science that was created, really a methodology that was created in the 70s on the study of successful people. Now, what I got two things. One, I got that I was really creating a reality. They say reality is the stories that we tell ourselves. So there was that one thing that I got. The second that I got, and the most important thing that I got, was a set of tools and techniques that allowed me to go and create the change. Create the change in my wiring, right? So that's what NLP really is. And, my life completely began to thrive, and, the rest is sort of kind of history. 10 years ago, I decided to quit my corporate job, and I just wanted to share and really, help others. Now, on that path, I've learned a lot of other methodologies. I've studied under a lot of teachers, and I came across an organization that has been doing, scientific research for the last 30 years called Heart Math Institute. And their focus of research is all about the energetics of the heart. So the impact of emotions and what that does on our physiology, the energetics of our heart as we affect each other, how we, sort of exist with the planet. And I kind of discovered them because I kind of went through a mini burnout, right? And again, they gave me tools and techniques and a methodology to really, it's really about optimal functioning. We're going to get a lot, more deeper into that. But that's what heart math is about, and that's what NLP is about. And to sum all of that up is what I do today is I teach people the how to actually go ahead and create the changes that they want in life. So that's the thing. It's really about teaching people the how to rather than the what. Everyone can tell you the what.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. I'm so glad that I asked this question because it's what an inspiring story it is. Because we are talking about mental health, we are talking about the youth, we are talking about how people can uplift their lives. And what better way than a youth himself who actually went through this experience and has come out of it. And like you said, instead of the what, is sharing the how. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'll jump right into my first question. What does it mean to have emotional resilience?
Is that for me or for Priyanka or kind of both?
You can answer it and Priyanka can top it up.
Sure. Well, I'm going to refer to the official definition by Heart Math Institute. I just think they've done a wonderful job. So emotional resilience is basically the capacity to prepare for and recover from any sort of stress, any adversity, any challenge, any trauma, right? And if I sort of break that down, it's capacity, meaning that we all have an amount. Like there's I have this much liquid in my glass right now. So if it's low, I don't have a lot of resilience, but if it's high, I have a lot of resilience, and I have the ability to even have a bigger container if I work on it, right? So it's the capacity, and then it's like, look, challenges and stress and things happen in life. It's the ability to then bounce back, which is really interesting because when trauma happens, when stress happens, when difficult times happen, we all have the ability to bounce back. But, the name of the game is, do we bounce back in a year? Do we bounce back in a month? Or have we learned how to bounce back within minutes? And so when we practice emotional resilience and we really work on that, that's what we're really working on, is how quickly we can recover and bounce back.
How quickly we recover.
Yeah.
Okay. Priyanka, you want to add anything to that?
There is insight after hearing Mohammed's story that, how we are being stopped by emotions, and life happens, life will keep on happening. But how willing we are to enhance this capacity to have more or bigger container so that we contain more and then be prepared more. And not struggling with life. Okay, these kind of people I should avoid, these situations I should avoid. Rather than that, working on yourself and maybe hiring Mohammed.
Yes, for
people
sure.
find out
Absolutely.
Mohammed, but we have Mohammed right now. So that your coach can help you to see. Okay, because if I could fix it up myself, I could have done it. But then it's like I am. What's available to me as opportunity to expand. This is what I'm hearing, that emotional resilience can make you strong, but if you're willing to work on yourself, and there is no problem, no shame in saying that I deal with this stuff. This kind of people,
I need help.
I need help.
That
is what being present to me.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. I mean, I have been working on myself, on my number one client. I've been working on myself for the last
Yeah.
decades, and I have my roster, my Rolodex of of coaches that I call, right?
Sweet. Yeah.
So,
It's work in
Mohammed, I'll
progress.
actually jump to the second question, which is like, why is emotional resilience so important? I know you sort of touched upon it when you spoke first, but like how imperative it is in our day-to-day life to be emotionally resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really important to understand, because I think we really, from the day that we grow up, we are so programmed to think that our purpose is utility. And what I mean by that is that as long as we are producing something, as long as we're creating something, as long as we're contributing something, then we have worth, which is absolutely false. The fact that we exist, that we have been given this breath, it means that we exist. We have a right to exist. We don't have to do it. If you do something, bonus. We put good out in the world, bonus, right? But this whole concept of worth and self-worth and the right to exist is not supposed to be tied to utility, right? So that as a background, let's understand that we actually have 4 domains. We have our physical domain, we have our emotional domain, we have our mental domain, and we have our spiritual domain. Okay, and mental domain is what we use when we do our taxes, when we do our homework, when we anything that requires focus, concentration, when we exercise memory, right? When we plan for the future, anything that's mental uses up that sort of battery, if you will. Okay, it creates drain. If I spend the entire day doing my taxes, I'm going to be drained, right? Physical is your muscles, right? If I help my friend move, right, it's going to create drain in my body, right? Spiritual, we're not necessarily talking about any sort of religion or theology here, but we're really talking about values. We all have values. And if I value something and I believe something to be true, but then my behaviors are outside of those values, that is going to create drain. Now, emotions then is our ability to regulate our emotions, whether we feel happy, do we feel sad, do we feel fear or stressed out, or do we feel excited, do we feel hope? What research has found, to answer your question and to give you that sort of foundation, what research has found is that the biggest impact at a hormonal level, which drains our body more than mental or physical or going against our beliefs and values, is our emotional domain. It creates so much drain. This is why I can help a friend move his entire house and be sore physically, but I will still have the energy to do things by the end of the day. Whereas if I got into a fight or I was angry, I was emotionally hurt, I just don't want to do anything. I can't focus, I can't concentrate, I'm wiped out, right? And this long-term creates health issues. So that's why it's so important, because you can trace things like cancer down to emotional stuff that hasn't been released.
So actually you talked about self-regulation in this.
Mm-hmm.
So how does the impact of its importance explain the self-regulation piece of your emotional self-regulation, if I'm putting the question properly?
Yeah. So I think this is more of a how-to, right? How do you self-regulate? So self-regulation, basically what that means is that how do we shift ourselves from the different emotions? How do we regulate our emotions? Now, we regulate our emotions automatically anyways. You can only stay angry or upset for so long. The body eventually lets it go, right? Sometimes it takes years, but eventually does let it go, right? Most of the time, if I'm driving in traffic, someone cuts me off, yells some obscenities to me or something, I'll be upset, but, maybe 10 minutes later, it's out of my mind, it's out of my body, and I can't even recollect it. If someone reminds me, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what his problem was, but I'm not emotionally reacting, right? we categorize emotions in two categories. So there's no, according to Heart Math Institute, I'm really going to refer because they've done such an excellent job. I mean, going on 30 years of research now. They categorize emotions not as good emotions or bad emotions, because the truth is all emotions, given the context, are appropriate and are justified, right? So for example, people might say that humor, is a good emotion, but humor during a divorce proceeding, may not be appropriate, or at a funeral may not be appropriate, right? So context matters, right? People will say anger is a bad emotion, but if I was to maybe look and reflect upon some of the atrocities that happen across the world, the genocides that have happened in the past, right? I don't think anyone would say that I'm not justified to feel angry about murder, for example, right? It makes me angry. It should make me angry, right?
Right.
What they categorize emotions as renewing or depleting. So what impact does it have at a hormone level to our physiology? What this means is emotions such as love, appreciation, compassion, hope, excitement, joy, all of those emotions that we sort of think are good emotions, they actually trigger 1,400 biochemical reactions in our body. But what they naturally produce, the main hormone that gets created in our body when we genuinely feel that emotion, is DHEA. And Priyanka, you're a certified nutritionist. DHEA is a hormone to do with our vitality. It makes everything just work, right? And then emotions such as anger, fear, sadness, resentment, bitterness, judgment, all of those emotions, they deplete us. And the primary hormone that gets created with that is cortisol, which we need a little bit of, but not excess, right? So that creates cortisol. So the how-to, the way we self-regulate, is when we, what I have my clients do, for example, and some of these clients have been on anxiety medication, right? What I'll get them to set an alarm, vibrate only, because ringtones can be very annoying sometimes. I'll get them to set an alarm every hour, and they do an internal spot check. Where am I right now? Am I feeling an emotion that is renewing? Am I feeling an emotion that is depleting? Or am I just sort of neutral? I'm not really feeling anything, right? And in either case, we do an internal check, and then we sort of feel a renewing emotion. I think about my son, for example. I will think about, I know it's COVID, and, hugging and shaking hands and all, unfortunately no longer a thing, but that doesn't mean I don't have lots and lots of memories that if I was to close my eyes right now and see the pictures, hear the sounds, and feel the feelings, it could almost be real that I'm with a loved one and I'm embracing them. And what that does is it creates that emotion inside of me, and that helps me regulate if I was in a state of anger or frustration or whatever, right? So that's the how-to. It really is activating that emotion consciously, right? And eventually when we practice that, our body learns, like anything, like riding a bike, like driving a car, like drinking your tea or coffee, right? We can just do it automatically. Our body just does it automatically by itself.
So it's almost like, Mohammed, you're saying it's like a toolkit that you have within you, and you take it out consciously to regulate yourself, pretty much.
Absolutely. And anything you do consciously eventually becomes unconscious mastery.
Right. For sure.
If I can just jump in to clarify or to really add something, the number one thing, at least for the people who come to me, what they haven't figured out is they believe they can't have control over their emotions. And the truth is, that is the one thing. I can't control the weather. I can't control government policy. I can't control so many things. The one thing that we absolutely have control over is how we choose to respond, right?
Yes.
There's subconscious, promptings, but with practice, we can even train ourselves. That's the P in programming for NLP, right? We really can train ourselves to respond with compassion as opposed to anger. It requires effort, it requires practice, but it's absolutely possible.
So you mentioned, Mohammed, about the hormones that are secreted when you have happy emotions or when you have sad or angry emotions. So obviously that brings me to my next question for Priyanka. How can healthy eating or nutrition really help us achieve emotional resilience?
It's a really good question for me that, you're the element which we are missing, we are deficient in, and then sometimes we figure it out that why it's happening to me, why I am losing my control. It's like you're deficient in some of the nutrients, like on physical body, while Mohammed was saying, like we have 4 domains. So physical body can be, you can have a collaboration of your physical body, mental body, so that physical body can help in the mental health as well. So there are certain food, as we spoke, talk about these in earlier episode, but then I would like to repeat that if your food is nutritive, it's not canned food, it's not dead food, it's like a live food, plant-based diet, and then full of colors, that will give your body a fuel so that your body is dealt with. You are complete, like you're not deficient in anything. Now you can, even then, if you have some emotional setback, and now you're finding yourself again in a situation, behaving or acting like certain thing, then you can see, okay, what's emotional thing is like which is hitting me. Do I need help, or how can I choose? I have still choice. How can I deal with it? How can behave or act in this particular situation? Anger or compassion? What do I choose? What is healthy for me? So food, colorful food, keep yourself hydrated. Like since 2 days, I am detoxing. I'm on fast, which is like in every religion we have this fasting system, and there was a reason behind it, so that body can rejuvenate and toxins can leave our system. And toxin can, play important role. So detoxification can give you health back. So nutrition and health, overall health is like really.
That's great. That's great. Mohammed, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's everything Priyanka basically said, because, ultimately it's all parts of the same system, right? And, as much as we have an energetic layer and we have an emotional layer, we have that physical layer. There is a machinery here. If you don't have the right nutrients, I mean, the machinery just doesn't work. I've noticed that, let's take meat, for example. And, when you start really going down that rabbit hole, it's not pretty because, the general practices in North America of how meat is handled, it's not good. Right? They are animals that are completely stressed out, right? And there's this old adage that you are what you eat. So when you eat that, right? When you eat something that is stressed and maybe got slaughtered in a state of excess cortisol in their bloodstream, you're now putting that into your bloodstream, right? So these sorts of things, they make a huge difference, right? Coffee is a stimulant, right? It has its benefits if you're drinking organic, right? But my wife's a nutritionist, so that's how I get a lot of
connected,
too, right? But you're putting that in your body, and you're putting a stimulant in your body, and of course, okay, if you have like an anxiety issue, for example, like coffee's not allowed. Nothing that's a stimulant is allowed. It's not, right? I mean,
right.
Clean food. And the last thing I just want to add there is sometimes all you have to do is just close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, and really ask your body, is this food good for me? Right? Your body will tell you, just listen to it. We know what's good for us. The problem is we don't listen.
Yes.
Our body is the
Actually,
biggest
we are just
candle.
getting very close to our finish line. So I will quickly ask the last question, and then we will take any other questions there are from the audience if there is. So the last question is that what do you really mean by mental fitness? And why don't we just refer it as mental health, or is it something different? And Mohammed, this is specifically for you.
Yeah. That's a term that I've been, that me and a bunch of colleagues, I mean, we're a large group. We've really been pushing this term because, for two reasons. One, it's just the connotation, mental health is often, linked with depression, anxiety, and all these sort of things. And I get too many clients who come to me and they almost have like a badge. I have depression. We don't really have emotions. We do emotions. There's an unconscious, thing that's happening that's creating those emotions. Once you learn what that recipe is, you can actually change it, right? So there's that, right? The other reason, and I think the more important reason, is mental health is kind of like a noun. It's a thing. Whereas with fitness, it's kind of like a verb. There's an action to it, right? And so that sort of has this thing that, you can work out, right? If your entire goal in life is not to be sick or not to be depressed or not to be sad, if my goal in life is I just don't want to be depressed, that doesn't necessarily mean that I am living each moment fully engaged with my five senses. It's not optimal, right? If my goal in life is I don't want to be sick, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm in thriving health, right? So, we took fitness and we just threw that in with mental fitness. So it's something that you have control over, something that you exercise, something that you work out, something that you're really going towards the future. That's really where it comes from, right? But you can say it's really the same thing, but it's more action oriented.
Okay. That is wonderful. I mean, it has been actually a really amazing conversation. And the more I'm listening about it, the more I'm getting excited and interested in learning more. And it just seems so valuable, especially in these difficult, depressing COVID times when everyone is just, they are so depressed with this global pandemic and things are looking so difficult and not easy, and that people are being bogged down with unnecessary emotions, which we probably did not have in good times. So it has been actually a wonderful, workshop. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm sure our audience too. I just made one mistake over here that I did not log into my WhatsApp over here so that I could take the live questions. So I actually don't know if there are any people have been asking any live questions or not. So I'm really, my apologies to the audience. That's sorry, I don't have another laptop over here to see if you have any questions. But do feel free to send them on either through email or through the Instagram. And so we'd be actually happy to answer any of those questions that you would have through Instagram at We Serve Canada. So this really wraps up our second workshop, and I really, really do want to thank our speakers. I want to thank our viewers who joined us, and we hope there were some very key getaway messages from this workshop, which I truly felt, even for myself, that there were some wonderful things that both Priyanka and Mohammed said, and I would be happy to have them as my life coaches and make my life a little easier. So if you want to go to them, feel free to ask for their social media contacts and things like that, and I'm happy to share that as well. So again, thank you to our special guests and for partnering with We Serve Canada's Mental Health in Youth, supported by TD. And we look forward to talking with you again next week, same time, January the 12th, and that will be the third workshop in our diet and nutrition segment. So I hope to see you then. Stay safe, stay healthy, and elevate yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much.